Okay, so for our final panel for this afternoon, very interesting one indeed. We're going to be talking about the state of the streaming business, particularly here in Asia. And to moderate this panel, we've got Jeff Hughes, the Chief Executive Officer of Omnifone. So Jeff, if you would kindly come up on stage and introduce your guests.
All right, I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves because I'm sure they can do a better job, and I'll just talk about myself. We have a very esteemed panel, I think is the cliche word. We've got all the streaming, a lot of the big streaming services in the region on the stage. There's a lot happening in the market today. I think as the industry itself stops distinguishing between digital and not digital, and everyone realizes the music industry is just one industry, and it's just digital. These people on this stage are really making a difference. So I'm going to let them all introduce themselves quickly, and then we'll get right into it. I think we've got a great representation across the board. Start with you, Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Bay. I'm the CEO of RDIO. We're in 85 countries. Our Asian regional headquarters is here in Singapore.
Hi, my name's Jamie Robertson. I'm standing in for Jyrki, who's stuck in New York. I head up the Asia region for MixRadio.
Hi, I'm Josephine Cheng. I'm the SVP for KKBOX, and we are in Asia, 6 countries, and we've been around for 10 years.
I'm John McLellan. I am a lawyer based in Hong Kong with a firm called Haldanes. And I think I'm here because we provide a lot of support services to services looking to launch in the region.
G'day, I'm Deane from Guvera. We're in 22 markets globally and 9 in Asia Pacific.
Good. I have to say, I've moderated a few panels and I've never had introductions that quick, so thank you very much. We can get right into it.
Tell us about Omnifone.
So, a little inside joke. So, let's just get right into it. We'll start down with Stephen and just work our way back. On the stage, we have a bunch of different services, digital streaming services of various types. And what I wanted to explore with the panel is what sort of business model do you guys see that works now? What do consumers want? How are they responding? Because we have a lot of different types up on the stage, some similar. And how does it play out as you try to grow your business in the different markets across the region and indeed across the world? Stephen, you want to give that a crack?
Thanks, Jeff. The approach we're looking at, I mean, most people know that pretty much all the streaming services have very similar business models, whether it's a subscription-based model or ad-funded as well. With regard to what we're doing, what's important to us at Guvera is really understanding and being driven by the consumer, because ultimately we strive to be as agnostic as we possibly can and deliver them what they want, when they want, how they want it. And that really is the key, and looking at how we can ensure everybody gets the value that they need from it, both our artist stakeholders and labels, our consumers, and both our brand partners as well.
And John, I know you help quite a few different services, so you might have an interesting perspective across the business model.
Yeah, I don't know if it's not much about business models, but I mean, I think that the perception I have in terms of what works is understanding the right, I guess, activation buttons to push in each market. I mean, that seems to me to be key. And I think in that respect, you know, KKBOX, having had the benefit of being around for a long time, probably does a very good job in that respect. I mean, they particularly in Taiwan, they engage heavily with their market in terms of offerings for fans to engage with artists. So I think it's not so much about the business model, but I think maybe from my perception, the activation buttons.
Right. So I do agree with John that its business model is important, but it also has to do with more of being closer to the lifestyle of the users of each market that we are in. So for example, in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Japan, it's mostly post-pay market with users' telephone bill. So our monthly subscription fee model has been working in these markets. But if you look at the prepaid economies in Malaysia or in Thailand, for example, if our user in Malaysia, his or her behavior is, I will go to the shop to top up 5 ringgit whenever my telephone bill is low, how are we going to sell this person something that's on a monthly basis? So I think being flexible is the key.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that as well. I think it does, I mean, we're live in 31 markets today. So when we look at the Asian markets, it's very, very different to the US or the LATAM markets. If you look at LATAM markets, they already have an established streaming service led by the operators. But in Asia, streaming services are still growing. So I think you need to rely on working with brands and sponsors, as we just seen with Pepsi. And then also the advertising funded model, and then moving into subscription services and paid for subscription services.
All right, Anthony?
So I think our view is that the biggest challenge is most consumers don't understand what streaming music is or subscription music. The idea of subscription is, as you pointed out, is not something most people understand. So in our view, we have to follow something that makes sense for the average consumer. And if you look at television, you have a free-to-air market. Most people, probably close to 95 or 100% of people watch television. Most people, and certainly in Asia, most people watch television that's free. Pay TV is a much smaller percentage of the market. So I think in our view, and pay TV came after free TV. We didn't expect people to pay for television when they weren't really used to it. So I think we have to find some version of free. Radio is the closest model because radio is a universal free service. And so I think to start there and work forward, I don't disagree with anything anyone else said. I think it's just at the same time, the percentage of people who are prepared to pay is still low. We have to start somewhere else.
I mean, it's interesting. There's all the way from free to paid for with your time for advertising to all the different types of pay models right up to fully unlimited subscription, which is the steps you have to take people through. I think one of the things I would love to get your take on is with the rights holders themselves. Clearly it's important for any service to be legal. It's important for it to be innovative, and that requires you to go and get the support and indeed the right to use music from the various parties in the region or in the world that you need a license from. So I wouldn't mind getting your perspective on, is that becoming easier or harder as this becomes central to the entire industry? Is it more or less fragmented? And if you could have your way and get whatever you wanted, other than not pay, so forget that part, what would you get? And I think I'd like to start with John on that, because I know you see it quite a lot, and then I'll hand it off to a few other people after that.
Well, in this part of the world, I think it's highly fragmented, and therefore relatively complex. I think it's probably not unique. I mean, I don't deal in America and in Europe, but I think it's challenging there. I think perhaps the issues here are that there are perhaps a vested interests in dare I say, keeping it complex. I think, unfortunately, that slows the process down of getting to market for services, when really it should be about competing on a level playing field, where the services are allowed to differentiate themselves. But I think what I've observed is that it can take years to get through the licensing process. I mean, depending on the markets that you're looking at launching in. So I suppose my hope, and I think it may be a vain one, is that that process would become faster, more transparent, and simplified.
Okay. And James, I think you just got some deals done very, very recently. Is that right? And sorry, before you answer, if that is right, I would really like to understand whether you think you're getting the support that you need, because you want to be innovative and do things and various things in different territories. Are you getting what you need and at an economical price?
Well, I think the first thing is we've been working with record labels for 15 years through all different variations of the business. Mm-hmm. So we work with recording rights holders, song rights, copyright holders, right throughout the world. We work with the international majors on a global basis, and we work right through to the local independent record labels as well. The one thing I would agree with John on is outside of the global deals you do have a fragmented market in Asia, where different providers, different countries look for slightly different business models or slightly different advantages. The effect of that is when you look across the different services, if I take Indonesia as an example, where you could have 12, 14, 15 different services. And what you'll find is the actual catalog offerings differ by service. So you'll have very local operators with very local catalogs through to very global players with very global catalogs. So one challenge for us in that example was actually get the right blend between international content and local content, especially in a country like Indonesia, because of the diverse music tastes there. Mm-hmm. Not everyone just looks for local content. Not everyone looks for just international content. So I think that's one of the advantages if you ever get to that point, John, in terms of where the industry has some very common models, then it benefits both us and the consumer.
And Anthony?
I think, as you said, and as John said, it's pretty complex. I think one of the interesting things you see in streaming that didn't happen in downloads or in CDs is a debate about what's fair, and not about how to build a viable economic business. I mean, we don't sit up and say, wow, what's a fair price for oil? What's a fair price for milk? There's a market price, and so the challenge, because it's not a market model, is artists want more, publishers want more, labels want more, and at some point services like the one sitting up here have to be economic. And so I think a lot of what gets lost is how do we build a market that's sustainable, and a lot of the debate seems to be how do the different groups squabble over essentially how to divide up a pie that hasn't yet existed. So I think we're, if you will, not working collaboratively enough to figure out how to build the business.
I mean, that's interesting. I think from we talk about business model, then we talk about licensing, and the point that Anthony was making was, there needs to be marketplace dynamics because that's what everything else has. And I think one of the questions I had was, can we have the people that are actually selling the music, the storefronts, the digital service providers that are up here, can they be profitable? Are they profitable? How do you see yourself making money? Is the debate about whether it's fair overtaking the debate about whether or not you can make money, and what happens to the industry if you don't? So, in our experience, we see quite a lot of flexibility with the record industry, but maybe not in the right areas. So I'll let you go, Stephen, on that one. How do you make a primarily ad-based service profitable, and do you see the willingness on the side of the rights owners to help you do that?
Well, I bloody well hope we're going to make money, because otherwise I'm not going to pay my mortgage, which is a bit of a problem. Other than that, I mean, I think the intent by everybody within the industry is to ensure that everyone is fairly paid and rewarded for great content. It's bloody simple, really. I'm incredibly surprised because I'm only kind of new to the industry, and probably unlike most of the people on the panel here, I'm pretty much a virgin to it. I've worked in other industries, and I'm astonished at how overly complex it is. But then I also appreciate and respect, to a degree, as to why it is as well. But as I said yesterday when I was chatting with the guys at Harley, it's about having a fair crack and ensuring you can't reward one artist over another, because they're all doing a bloody good job, and all creating something that's intrinsically valuable to someone that wants to enjoy it and be entertained by it at the end of the day.
Josephine, I know you actually are profitable, or I've heard a rumor of such. I don't know if that's true. Would you mind commenting on that?
Sure. So we have broken even, but the game doesn't stop here. I think, like everybody else on the panel mentioned earlier, the region is so diversified, and I think the landscape is changing really fast. So how do we find the right magic mix for each market and scale it? I think that is the challenge we face.
Anthony?
I think, as you said, ultimately, and as Stephen said, no one can pay their mortgage. Ultimately, the services have to be profitable, and it has to be attractive to consumers. Artists have to be fairly paid. So I think all those things have to work out. As you pointed out, most companies in this group are focusing on growth.
Yep.
More than pure profitability. I think we all believe we can eventually be profitable, but I think this. It is incredibly complex, I think, which is how you started this, and I don't know if I can say it's too complex or not, but it is what it is. But there's a lot of people have to say yes in order to get anything done.
Okay, that's a pretty interesting perspective. I mean, clearly, I've heard quite a lot about Asia being so diverse and complex, and I guess a lot of the services that come here are also in the rest of the world. So there's global, and then there's the global complexity, and then there's the complexity that's in Asia. Have you seen a change in that complexity as everything's gone digital, or has it gotten more complicated for you from a technical point of view and from a commercialization point of view in this region? Or is it starting to come together in a way where you can repeat, not necessarily the business model, because it has to be different, but repeat the delivery consistently and reliable out to all the different territories that you have to support? You've just done some new technology. I know it's on the front end, but would you like to start with that, James?
So we've been, having been with Microsoft and previous to that Nokia, we've been present in Asia for 5 years. One of the advantages of that presence is both our experience and the data points we've actually collated. And what that means for the consumers is, with MixRadio, when they actually come in and experience our music, we can deliver a personalized experience direct to them. Our job is on two folds. One side is talking about MixRadio and making sure we present what we actually stand for. The second point of that is the consumer education to consumer services, to actual streaming services. There's a misconception in terms of data streaming, how much it's going to eat into mobile data packages, which is extremely sensitive in Vietnam, Malaysia, even Thailand and Indonesia. So one of our jobs, I guess, as digital services altogether, is make sure people are aware of what streaming services are, what it actually means for them, whether it's data packages, and then to talk about the many benefits on top of that.
Right. Anyone else care to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. In this region, I think you heard two things. First of all, it's not a region; it's a group of countries, and every country is highly different, more so than most other regions in the world. And you have to be very local. KKBOX has done a very good job of being very, very local. I think the rest of us, try to emulate that. And when it comes to figuring this out, there has to be, as you said, things that make sense for the consumers. A lot of people, I think, in fact, calling it streaming in some ways is a problem.
Yeah.
Because you can cache offline with most of our services and avoid those data charges. And so part of it, I think, was, I don't know where the term streaming came around, but as a definition, a lot of the way you can use our service and use these other services is download offline at a Wi-Fi hotspot or home and then be able to listen. So managing data costs in this region is I think, plus the fact that it's mostly prepaid are huge issues.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think for all of us, streaming has become something that it doesn't actually mean, which is these types of services rather than the way they're delivered. Yeah. Okay, well, given that these are music services, and therefore one would assume it has music in it, there's only so much music that available. If you make the assumption that everyone's going to get the content they need, both the local and the international, which are equally important in almost every country that you go into, how does a service today differentiate itself? Is it through curation? Is it through high resolution audio? Is it through exclusives, unique content? There's all kinds of options, but you don't hear a lot about people actually doing these things successfully. So I wondered, how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors who are all up here, and I wouldn't mind, a little fight breaking out. But how do you make yourself different and better than the person sitting next to you? I'll start with you, Josephine.
Sure. So, KKBOX, we actually have a very comprehensive song database. We have nearly 20 million songs. But we have the perception, and we are very happy that we have that perception, that we are locally relevant. We have a strong local repertoire. So we do take that and work with that. So for example, we have 1,600 celebrities or artists that use our function called Listen With. So Listen With function, they say if Ethan wants to go online, then people can follow him and listen with the songs that he's listening to, and then he can also chat with his fans. So about 90% of active Mandarin artists are using this function on a regular basis. We also noticed that in our business, we want the users to consume more music. And we notice one of the things that they consume more is whenever there's a live event, before and after. So for example, using Ethan again, in Hong Kong last year, we held a live session. 1,000 people was in physical attendance, but 200,000 people watched online. And we noticed the songs that he sang before and after. Of course, we have editors to curate the playlist and everything. There will be anything between a 2x to 10x more frequent streams for those songs. So repeat that experience for others. And 200,000 people, by the way, is like having 20 concerts at the Hong Kong Coliseum. So we try to replicate that experience for our users across the region.
So for you, it's about localization, curation, and linking the live experiences with some of your stars back into the service.
Yes, one of the methods that we use.
What about you, Steve?
See, that to me is the same as what we're all doing, because we all have the capability of actioning that regardless of the markets that we're in. The guys are doing a great job in Asia from a KKBOX point of view. We do the same thing in Australia, we do the same thing in the States, we do the same thing in Latin America. For me, it comes down to really differentiating your brands in the market. We're seeing a massive increase in services coming through, which is brilliant, because it's educating the market. There's going to be a point at which there's going to be a consolidation. There always is in the world of media and entertainment. And to get that step ahead, it's about differentiating yourselves as a brand in the respected markets that you're in. And that's something that we're really focused on doing, because we don't want to be a one-size-fits-all streaming service. Yep. In my mind, if I think back to, if I look at the States, for example, you've got Spotify doing a fantastic job, Pandora doing a great job. They're kind of like the Sprint and AT&T of streaming. Everybody can subscribe. Your mum and dad, your granny, your sister. Where's the difference for me, and why should I connect with you as a brand? Because really, your product is exactly the same. There's an element of UX that you can play around with and really drive a point of difference there, and really appeal to a consumer's way of wanting to consume their content. That, to some degree, is becoming a little bit vanilla as well, because if you think about the way that Facebook and Google and so forth also develop the user experience, and iTunes, so there's a clash and a combination of how humans interact with interfaces. And there's going to be a point at which everything's going to look the same to some degree. But it really comes down to what you mean as a brand. And the content that we distribute will be part of that narrative, but it's how we differentiate ourselves in that respect.
Okay. I mean, so that's kind of, as I guess the point that I got out of that was that things that are innovative become almost hygiene factors very, very quickly. And so you have to constantly be doing new things, and for you it's about the experience and the brand.
Exactly. I mean, we launched at South by Southwest Radio, for example. So we launched a new initiative with a new product looking at live radio broadcasting. So the user being able to become their own broadcaster. They can curate their own radio show. They have the ability to have call-ins and social interactions with people live on air through their mobile phone, which is, just an innovation. It's about throwing things out there and seeing if they stick, and testing and learning and evolving and having a crack.
Okay. John, you see quite a few things pass in front of you, I think. Do you have a perspective on that? You know, what is it? What is it that people are buzzing about? You know, some of the things, nobody's mentioned unique content that's not music. Nobody's mentioned HRA, high resolution audio. Are any of those things appealing? Or are you seeing people start to talk about that kind of stuff? Or is it more?
I think, I mean, different markets have taken different approaches. I mean, in China at the moment, there's a bit of a turf war in terms of signing up exclusive content. That seems to be quite a big trend at the moment. I mean, to some extent, you know, KKBOX tried that in one market. I don't know if it worked, but I think the functionality is pretty much the same for most of the services. So, I mean, I would go back to the activations, and you say it's the same for everyone, but I mean, I think everyone will try something slightly different. So to me, it's understanding the activation points in that market and being reactive to what works. And really, I mean, today, I think KKBOX is doing the best job.
Okay, you should send the check.
And we don't represent them, by the way.
I know you don't. Yeah, you're going to talk about us too. You're a big, you know, global brand. Do different territories all over the world. I can't remember how many territories you're in, but quite a few. I know you said
85.
85. And I did check, and there are actually 85 countries in the world, at least.
There are more than 85 countries.
How do you look to differentiate your service, given that the content's probably the same or similar? You localize in some territories, not in others. Do you see a big impact when you do that in terms of usage and subscribers? And is there anything that you're looking to do that would set yourself apart that can't be just copied or easily become a hygiene factor?
So that's a great question. So I used to work at Amazon. I ran Amazon's video business, and if you go back to some things Jeff Bezos says, who's generally a pretty good business person, is you start with the customer and work backwards. So what our goal is to have every song ever recorded on any device, anywhere in the world, instantly and tuned to you as an individual, because whether it's 20 million or 30 million or 40 million, most people can't comprehend that. And so how you curate that music is important. But actually, we don't think everyone will focus on licensing the biggest catalog. Not everyone is focused on that, depending on your objective. Not everyone will try to be on all the devices. We're aggressively on cars. Our fastest growing platform right now is televisions. The best sound system most people have in their homes is a TV. And so actually, music on television it turns out to be a very growing audience. So we are looking to differentiate ourselves by being able to be in every part of your life with every song you might want. And that's a very local experience. It's not, there's a certain amount of global songs that people listen to, but every country, pretty much universally, almost every country in the world, the largest part of the market is local repertoire and local artists. And so doing that, and also helping those artists get visibility outside their own territories. That's one of the biggest things that we can do. Because we're global, we had some things in Singapore here where we help take local artists and give them a broader global footprint. So, each of us will do things differently. That's ours, is try to leverage the fact, take advantage of being global, but also feel very, very local as well.
Okay. And so I'm going to get James to comment, but just start thinking of your questions. We're starting to get toward the end, and I'm going to take a few questions from the audience after this. James, you guys have been through quite a few different changes over the 10, 15, 20, 35 years you've been around. One of the oldest at it, quite a lot of experience. What do you think about how you differentiate a service?
So I'm gonna disagree, and without causing a bun fight, on a couple of comments.
All right, finally. It's taken 30 minutes, but here we go.
So I've come out of a device business. I've come out of a Nokia device business. And I've just heard the phrase hygiene factor. Functionality is the same. A Nokia phone makes phone calls, texts, access to the internet. And I look at what iPhone did, where Android has gone. So I disagree with some of the hygiene factors and some of the functionality questions, and it's all about brand and marketing. I believe it is about providing good quality experiences for the user. I believe it is about innovation from one side, but I also believe it's about tailoring that innovation to suit your audience. Now, Anthony made a very good comment on about, 35, 40 million catalogs. Music is music, and we'll license it according to what we need. But it's about how we actually serve that to the consumer. So it's, no one can find their way around a 30 million catalog. So it is about the curation, it is about using algorithms, it is about that human curation factor as well, and how you actually surface that music to meet the personal needs of every single customer, whether they're sat in listening to Dangut in Sumatra or K-pop in Thailand. That's the most important thing. That's why I would say it's not just about marketing, it's not just about functionality, it's about getting absolutely right for each and every customer.
Okay, I actually thought that was pretty consistent with what most people said. I think there's, I was surprised that no one, even though I tried to get you to, no one talked about having unique content or exclusive. So I wonder if that's just too hard to do right now, or if it will come in the future, because a lot of successful subscription-based services in TV and others, prime themselves around having something that you can't get anywhere else, which is very difficult in this industry. Anyway, I'd like to see if there are any questions from the audience. It's very difficult to see, so if anyone has a question, you have to put your hand up and scream. Is there one there? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Please just say who you are and then ask the question, and we'll try to get it answered.
Okay. Hi, my name is Piapong from Thailand. Well, I'd like to ask KKBOX, but everybody else could answer as well. So KKBOX is partnered with GMM Grammy, which is like a big entertainment conglomerate in Thailand, claim to control 75% of the entertainment business, I guess. So I'd like to ask, what's your strategy to acquire smaller indie label content? Thank you.
Strategies to acquire?
I mean, yeah, to get songs, content.
Ingest the content, get it, make it available.
Sorry.
So even though we work with GMM, we are definitely open to work with everybody, and I think we have a team of licensing people that actually work pretty hard on the ground to make sure that we have the most comprehensive content in Thailand. So hope that answers your question.
Are there any other questions out there? I see somebody running, so I presume she's running too.
She's running. She may be leaving.
It's that good, is it?
Chris Lin from the Business Times newspaper in Singapore. Okay, lossless audio. So 2 questions. CD quality lossless audio and high res, better than CD quality lossless audio. Are they a waste of time in Asia, or are they worth pursuing? For all the panelists, please.
So I think there's, just to clarify the question, there's lossless, which is kind of the format that you get, and then there's high resolution, which is much higher, and I believe about 5 to 6% of the world's music is in high resolution now, not much more, maybe 7. It's a good question. I tried to get somebody to bite on it earlier, so thank you.
I'll bite. So the biggest problem you have is that's only noticeable on very high-end audio equipment over high-speed networks, and so literally on a mobile phone, it's not. And the challenge you have, it's not like high-definition television where you can tell the difference between composite, HD, 4K, and it works on the TV sets. When you buy a new TV set, for in particular in this region, there's almost no one with the right infrastructure to play that. It's one of the it's one of the problems with those services, even in the U.S. and Western Europe. There are people who will pay for the most expensive thing anyway, so there is a niche market for it, and over the course of time, perhaps it will become more valuable. But if you look at what's happened in audio, the quality of audio has gone backwards. If you look at people listening to essentially transcoded MP3s compared to high quality audio. And so we have not seen a market for that of any size. We think it will matter at some point, but in the meantime, it is not. Unlike video, the higher quality audio has not been a material point because it's not discernible on most equipment.
Does anyone on the panel have a different perspective on that?
No, I don't disagree. I mean, and when we saw the launch of Tidal in the US, it was a classic example of where they've premium priced a certain part of their product, which is going to appeal to a minority of people, and the mass market aren't going to pick it up. So really, there's no market for it in that sense yet.
But you see companies like Pono in the United States where they have a player that's supposedly architected, and it sounds wonderful on the player, and it's very low. It's very low cost relative. It's cheaper than the phone. So
no. You have to buy every single new song again for Pono. It's not very low cost.
No, the device itself. That's what I meant. So my question was going to be, as the devices go and become more and more common, so that, because you're right, if you don't have the right device, why pay for the song?
It's the device, but it's also the ability to access it to the data as well. So yeah, if you've got a free Wi-Fi streaming area, fantastic. But if you're using your own data, and again, that's the issue in the States with what they're doing over there, is that it's going to chew up so much data. Most people on prepaid aren't going to do that because they want to surf Facebook as well as stream as well as do whatever else they want to do.
It sounds like it's a bit ahead of its time for the region.
I think it's not necessarily ahead of its time. It's about each individual is going to want their needs. Free compressed files in Asia is the direction to get the scale here. As you see more innovations as music goes on to smart TV contents, through play consoles, that's when you'll see a bigger market for lossless formats, for higher audio quality, and more interactive services.
Okay. You did better than I at getting them onto the topic. Any other questions from the audience? There doesn't appear to be. We've captivated you, have you? So, as you guys, we still, as you
Let's talk about Omnifone again.
Yeah, let's talk about Omnifone.
Okay. As you guys go out and try to acquire content, I mean, the question that was directed at KKBOX about the smaller local labels. Do you find from content, from acquiring the content, not buying the labels, but acquiring the content and getting it ingested and cleaned up, do you find that as we say, the juice is worth the squeeze? I mean, you go to a very small label and the standards aren't there, and you have a hard technical challenge in front of you. Do you find that to be insurmountable, or is that just part of the job, and going out to get the hundreds of small labels that you absolutely need for local, and as Anthony said earlier, if you don't have them, you're going to miss out on the vast majority of what people like. What's improving, or is it improving, or is it still just a headache for you? James, you look like you're about to.
Thanks. So, again, it's going to be dependent on market. Western Europe, US, it's not really a problem. If you don't have signed up with the labels, there's certainly aggregators which take independent artists on directly now. Same in Asia, you have good quality aggregators there, which are starting to build content in some countries, and other countries are still emerging. So Vietnam being a good example, where you've got some very early stage aggregators, and their biggest challenge is starting to, one, communicate and educate the artists, or the recording artists, in terms of the formats and the file formats, and then starting to educate them in terms of things like metadata, which is important to all of us and what we do. So there's a value chain there in the aggregation market, as well as just the recording majors as well.
Okay, so we have just a few minutes left. I thought I would give you all the opportunity to just give a really quick closing statement, as quick as you're opening. Anything that you thought that you wanted to say in this panel that you didn't get a chance to say, and then we will wrap it up. So we'll start down with you again and work our way back. It's better to go first, because then you can't, just say I agree.
I just want to talk about the wonderful job that you guys do at Omnifone, really.
I was going to talk about that as well.
Oh, see?
Well, I couldn't agree more.
That was it, right? Okay.
No, I'm just taking the mickey out of him now.
Yeah, I suppose it would be my hope would be on the licensing side, is that if we could make it simpler, faster, more efficient, more economic, I think, actually, because it's something that you all are facing a crunch on, and I think the economics actually, unfortunately, seem to be squeezing you more at the moment. So I think that would be my hope. So.
Josephine?
So I think everybody will agree that everyone loves music. We just want to figure out how to get them to pay more.
We launched on iOS and Android yesterday, or 2 days ago. When you leave the room, turn left and download the app.
There you go. Free commercial.
So I think I would say that regardless of who's sitting on this panel in 5 years, that some things will be true. More people will have smartphones. Music is one of the top apps on smartphones. Networks will continue to get better and over time less expensive. And so music is universal, and at some point in time, everybody on every smartphone will be listening to one service or another. And hopefully the most important thing is they will be legal services, because the biggest opportunity really is to make music legal and better than piracy. And I think all the trends are in the right direction. So I think we're very optimistic about the long term, separate from any individual company. Overall, the consumer experience is going to continue to get better, and I think it's good for the industry. People are going to be listening to more music.
Good. Well, I think it's been an interesting panel. We've talked about quite a lot, the way to get things licensed, the way to distinguish yourself, and quite a lot of other things. So I'd like to ask the audience to join me in giving the panelists a hand.